enthroned sustainable growth.
Now assume new role.
Never carry crude on.
There is this company valued at over $60 billion that is responsible for every major development you see in Nigeria. This company is responsible for more than 90% of Nigeria's export earnings. In my research into this, I found that 95% of all forex, let's say the dollar currency for ease, that you see in Nigeria is derived from the activities of this one company. This company is at the heart of every major deal that has made Nigeria significant money. They fund the government, their revenues affect the value of the naira, they decide if you eat or not. That is how powerful they are. And they have used this power to do some good in so many ways that I can't start counting. But the problem here is, with absolute power comes absolute corruption.
Some of the key people, suspects, basically disown their own companies.
The power and influence that this one company wields has made it a target for some very corrupt fellows who try so hard to seize control just so they can, take some loans for themselves, if you know what I mean. Now, check out this graph. This represents the largest oil producing countries in Africa. Nigeria is second on that list, behind only Angola. And all the oil assets of Nigeria are controlled by this one ministry that happens to own this one company. See where I'm going with this? When you hear of the oil wealth of countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and the likes, you kind of start to wonder if it's the same oil that Nigeria is selling, right? Well, after our last two videos where we talked about corruption in the Nigerian oil industry, I and my team decided to take it up a notch with this one, where we sought to unpack the mystery behind it all. This led us into the history, the structure, and some inside secrets of this company behind all of Nigeria's oil wealth. In this episode, we will look at the figures holding the company hostage with ridiculous corruption and personal enrichment. We'll also see some of the reforms going on in this oil company. We'll also take a look at some of the challenges facing them. This is the complete story of the NNPC, the $60 billion oil company that owns Nigeria.
Dr. Mele Kolo Kiari, NNPC Limited, in the last couple of months, the oil and gas industry, especially around the frontier exploration basins
From hydrocarbon reserves in our country, potential commercial hydrocarbon discovery in this area.
Okay, so rewind to 1971. The Nigerian government is looking for a way to join OPEC. That is the international organization that influences the global market price of oil, amongst other things. And they are told they need to take control of their oil wells for this to happen. After so many backroom deals, as is common in every business situation, the Nigerian government established a company called the Nigerian National Oil Corporation. This corporation was established to oversee Nigeria's oil and gas industry. But after some challenges with transparency and all, the government of the time decided in 1977 to merge the NNOC with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources to form the now known Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. This new corporation was created to serve as the engine of the Nigerian economy. The government was not even trying to hide the fact that they were wholly reliant on this newly formed NNPC for all of its revenue. However, a few decades later, and we are back to where we started. It turns out the government has again realized that the setup of the NNPC was flawed, so much so that it was so easy for corrupt officials to loot the treasury for themselves and their bodies. This high level of corruption, inefficiency, and a lack of transparency has affected the NNPC's ability to achieve its mandate. These issues have even led to a decline in Nigeria's oil and gas industry and the country's economy at large. Well, this was until June 2022 when the government of President Muhammadu Buhari announced that the NNPC would be transformed from a corporation to a limited liability company. This was following the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act in August 2021. So, with these new reforms, the NNPC Limited would operate as a commercial entity. No more reliance on government funding and direct controls. The question though is, how far will these transformations go? And will they stop the endemic corruption we have come to know this company with? Before we get into the new structure of the NNPC, which is quite interesting, let me show you some of the corruption we are talking about. This will help you understand why this change, this whole transformation was necessary. The Malabo oil scandal is a corruption case involving the award of the OPL 245 oil block in Nigeria. Malabo Oil and Gas, a company allegedly owned by Dan Etet, the oil minister under military head of state Sani Abacha, was initially awarded the oil block in 1998. However, the Nigerian government revoked Malabu's license in 2001. But Shell, that is Shell Corporation, had signed an agreement with Malabu to acquire a 40% stake in OPL 245 in that same year. Legal disputes over the ownership of the oil block continued until 2011, when a resolution agreement was reached among Malabu, Shell, Eni, and the Nigerian government. Malabu agreed to hand OPL 245 back to the government for $1.092 billion, and Shell and Eni agreed to pay the same amount to the government for the license. Well, this was where things started to get interesting. According to Italian prosecutors, most of the money, that is the $1.092 billion, was siphoned off to politicians and middlemen, including Dan Etet. So, in 2017, a Nigerian court ordered the temporary forfeiture of OPL 245 to the government after an application by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, which accused Malabo and others of fraudulently acquiring and transferring the block. The court also ordered Shell and Eni to transfer $1.092 billion into the government account, pending an investigation. Then, in 2018, the Nigerian government filed a $1.1 billion lawsuit against Shell and Eni in London courts, seeking to revoke their license and recover damages for alleged corruption and unlawful activities in relation to OPL 245. This scandal first came to light in 2012 when the Italian police raided the offices of Eni and seized documents relating to the company's acquisition of this OPL 245 oil block. The documents revealed that Eni and Shell had paid a total of $1.3 billion to the Nigerian government to acquire the rights to the oil block, but that much of the money had been siphoned off to individuals and companies, including Malabo Oil and Gas. So, in 2017, the Italian authorities charged several individuals, including senior executives from Eni and Shell, with corruption relating to the acquisition of the OPL 245 oil block. The trial of 13 defendants, including Eni, Shell, former Eni CEO Paolo Scaroni, current Eni CEO Claudio Descalzi, former Shell's head of upstream Malcolm Brinded, former Nigerian oil minister Dan Etet, and Nigerian businessman Aliyu Abubakar. Their trials began in May 2018. The prosecutors accused the defendants of international corruption and claimed that they paid $1.092 billion in bribes and kickbacks to Nigerian officials and intermediaries in order to secure this deal. But the court acquitted all the defendants of corruption charges on March 17, 2021. Now, another very disturbing corruption case, perhaps the most alarming, involving the national oil company, was with fuel subsidy. The fuel subsidy scam involved the fraudulent payment of subsidies to importers of petroleum products in Nigeria. I believe it is now common knowledge that the Nigerian government subsidizes the price of petrol for consumers by fixing it below the international market price and paying the difference to fuel importers and marketers. This is why the pump price of petrol is relatively cheap in Nigeria compared with other oil producing countries. However, it was alleged that some importers and marketers had colluded with some corrupt government officials and agencies to inflate the amount of subsidies paid, resulting in a loss of billions of dollars to the Nigerian government. The scandal first came to light in 2012 when the Nigerian government attempted to remove the fuel subsidy, resulting in protests and a nationwide strike. The government argued that the subsidy was unsustainable and wasteful, and that the funds saved from its removal could be used for other developmental projects. However, many Nigerians opposed the removal, fearing that it would lead to higher prices of petrol and other goods and services, and that the government will not use the funds transparently or accountably. They also demanded that the government should first prosecute those involved in the subsidy scam before removing the subsidy. Now, this was where the ball got rolling. The investigation into the subsidy payments revealed that several oil marketers had submitted fraudulent claims, and that some government officials and agencies had approved these claims without proper verification of any sort. According to a report by a parliamentary committee, about $6 billion had been defrauded from the fuel subsidy fund between 2009 and 2011 by oil marketers, importers, and even government officials. The report also exposed the inefficiency and mismanagement of Nigeria's oil sector, which relies heavily on fuel imports, despite being Africa's second largest oil producer. And this is in part due to the poor state of its refineries, a rabbit hole I will want to look into one day if we have access. Anyways, this scandal led to the arrest and prosecution of several individuals, including oil marketers and NNPC officials. Some of them were charged with offenses such as conspiracy, fraud, forgery, money laundering, and even tax evasion. In 2011, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, arrested and charged 20 oil marketers and 6 companies for allegedly defrauding the government of 1.3 trillion naira. Yeah, you heard that right, 1.3 trillion naira, that is $8.3 billion, through the fuel subsidy scheme between 2009 and 2011. Now, I'm not going to go through their names here, even though it's public record. You can find that attached in the sources below. And then in 2013, the Special Fraud Unit (SFU) of the Nigerian Police arrested and charged 10 persons and 2 companies for allegedly defrauding the government of 1.3 billion naira. In 2014, the EFCC again arrested and charged 14 oil marketers and 5 companies for allegedly defrauding the government of 22.8 billion naira, that is $145 million. In 2015, 9 more oil marketers and 5 companies were charged by the EFCC for allegedly defrauding the government of 7.8 billion naira. Now, these are some of the details of the arrest and prosecution associated with the fuel subsidy scam in Nigeria. However, there are still many other cases that are pending or unresolved, and many other suspects that are yet to be brought to justice. My research team did a splendid work on this one, and you can find access to the complete research files we used in the description box below. According to a report by the House of Representatives Committee that probed the fuel subsidy scam in 2012, about 140 oil marketers and companies were indicted for various offenses, such as false claims, over-invoicing, tax evasion, and forgery. However, only a few of them have been arrested and prosecuted by the EFCC, while many others are still at large or have not been charged. In another report by Budget, a civil organization that tracks public spending in Nigeria, some oil marketers and companies are still owed 800 billion naira, that is some $5.09 billion, by the government as subsidy arrears from 2015 to 2017. However, some civil society groups have questioned the legitimacy of these claims, alleging that they are inflated or fraudulent. The government has also not verified or audited these claims before agreeing to pay them in installments. The report also noted that some oil marketers and companies have threatened to shut down their operations or sue the government if they are not paid their arrears. Now, to curb all of this, the Nigerian government had planned to remove fuel subsidy and deregulate the sector by June 2023, following the provision made in the 2023 Fiscal Framework and Appropriation Act, as well as the Petroleum Industry Act. However, on Thursday, April 27, 2023, while researching this video, we found that the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, announced that the government had suspended its plan to remove fuel subsidies indefinitely, citing inflationary pressures and the need for further consultation with key stakeholders, including the states and the incoming administration. So, the wait for the removal continues. But how about the crude oil swap scandals? Back in 2010, something was introduced called the crude oil swap deals as a way to ensure adequate supply of petroleum products, particularly petrol, diesel, and kerosene for local consumption. Under the swap deals, NNPC would exchange crude oil with some foreign oil traders who would refine the oil and supply the refined products back to Nigeria. The swap deals were meant to reduce the reliance on expensive fuel imports and increase local refining capacity. However, the swap deals soon became a cash cow for some NNPC officials and their foreign collaborators, who used the deals to siphon billions of dollars from the country's oil revenues. The scandal first came to the public notice in 2014 when the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, alleged that the NNPC had not remitted $20 billion in oil revenues to the government. Sanusi claimed that this money was missing from the proceeds of crude oil sales made under these crude oil swap deals between 2012 and 2013. The allegation led to an investigation by the Nigerian House of Representatives, which found that the NNPC had entered into illegal swap deals worth $6.8 billion with some foreign oil traders. The House of Representatives also found that the NNPC did not follow due process in the award of contracts for the crude oil swap deals, and that some of the companies involved in the deals were not qualified to participate. Now, in 2015, the Nigerian Senate also launched an investigation into the crude oil swap deals. The Senate found that the NNPC had awarded the contracts without any competitive bidding process and that the deals were not even transparent. The Nigerian Senate also accused some NNPC officials of colluding with the foreign oil traders to defraud the country. The investigation revealed that the NNPC had sold crude oil at discounted prices to some companies, which later sold the same oil at higher prices to other companies. The investigation also found that some of the companies involved in the deals were shell companies with no known address or track records. One of the measures taken by the NNPC and the Nigerian government to stop the rot was the introduction of the DSDP contracts. These contracts were awarded to 15 consortia, including major Swiss trading firms Trafigura, Vitol, and Mercuria, as well as Nigerian traders Sahara Energy, Oando, and MRS Oil. The contracts were expected to supply nearly all of Nigeria's petrol needs, as well as cover some of its diesel and jet fuel consumption. They were also expected to be more transparent and accountable than the swap deals, as the NNPC adopted a more rigorous process for awarding contracts. However, despite the change in the contractual arrangement, corruption allegations have continued to plague Nigeria's oil sector. In 2019, a report by anti-corruption group Global Witness alleged that some NNPC officials had colluded with foreign traders to divert millions of dollars from the DSDP contracts. The report claimed that the officials inflated the cost of crude oil sold to the traders and then used the excess revenue to bribe government officials and fund political campaigns. The report also alleged that some of the traders involved in the DSDP contracts had links to individuals who were under investigation for corruption in other countries, including Switzerland, Brazil, and the United States. The report called for the Nigerian government to cancel the DSDP contracts and launch a thorough investigation into the corruption allegations. The NNPC and the Nigerian government have, however, denied those allegations, insisting that the DSDP contracts were awarded through a transparent and competitive process. The government also accused Global Witness of using unsubstantiated allegations and misrepresentations to tarnish Nigeria's image and undermine its effort to attract foreign investments. Now, concerning this very DSDP contract saga, I made several efforts to reach the NNPC for comments on this particular story. I guess I'll have to get back to you with a response when I hear from them. Now, talking about contracts and investments.
Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
In 2017, the NNPC came under scrutiny over allegations of contract award irregularities. The oil company was accused of awarding contracts worth billions of dollars to companies owned by or connected to individuals in position of power without following due process or adhering to the country's procurement laws. This scandal was made public by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources at the time, Ibe Kachiku, who wrote a letter to President Muhammadu Buhari alleging that the NNPC had awarded contracts worth $26 billion without following due process. Kachiku also accused the group managing director of the NNPC, Maikantu Baru, of insubordination and bypassing him in the award of contracts. Some of the contracts that were alleged to have been awarded without due process included the crude term contract CTC for 2017-2018, the direct sale of crude oil and direct purchase of petroleum products, that is the DSDP we talked about, for 2017 and 2018, the Ajaokuta Kaduna Kanu gas pipeline contract, various financing agreements worth $3 billion with some international banks, and various engineering procurement and construction contracts worth $3 billion for some projects under the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, that is NPDC, a subsidiary of the NNPC. The scandal led to a Senate investigation and several calls for Baru's resignation. The Nigerian government launched an investigation into the scandal and vowed to take action against those found to have acted unlawfully. In October 2017, the Nigerian Senate passed a resolution calling for the resignation of Maikantu Baru and the investigation of Dr. Ibe Kachiku. The Senate also set up a committee to investigate the allegations of contract award irregularities by the NNPC. The committee submitted its report in March 2018, but it was not made public, so I don't have access to it. Hopefully the Nigerian government sees this video and agrees to talk to us about it. I will be elated if that happens. I think it will be great to hear from the horse's mouth, right? The NNPC contract award scandal was a major blow to Nigeria's image as an oil-producing nation. It raised serious questions about the transparency and accountability of the country's petroleum industry. The scandal showed that the NNPC, which is responsible for the management of Nigeria's vast oil resources, had failed to follow due process in the award of contracts. The scandal also highlighted the need for reforms in the country's oil sector to ensure that such irregularities do not occur in the future. Now, in response to all of these scandals, the Nigerian government launched a major restructuring of the NNPC aimed at improving transparency and accountability in the management of the corporation's resources. The restructuring included the creation of several autonomous business units within the corporation, each with its own CEO and board of directors. This move was aimed at reducing the level of centralization in the corporation and making it more efficient and responsive to the needs of stakeholders being Nigerians, I guess. The restructuring was followed by the passage of the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, PIGB, in 2018, which sought to reform the oil industry and promote transparency and accountability in the management of the country's oil resources. The bill was passed by the National Assembly, but however, it wasn't signed into law by President Muhammadu Buhari. In 2020, a new version of the bill, the Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, was introduced to the National Assembly, and it was subsequently passed into law in July 2021. The PIB seeks to modernize the governance and fiscal framework of Nigeria's oil industry, improve transparency and accountability, and promote the development of host communities. That is, the communities that have these oil wells that we get all of our resources from. The new law also seeks to promote the exploration and production of unconventional hydrocarbons such as shale gas and deep water resources. The passage of the PIB has been hailed as a major milestone in the reform of Nigeria's oil industry, and it is expected to improve investors' confidence, attract more investment into the sector, and increase government revenue from oil production. The new law also provides for the establishment of a Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, which will be commercially focused and run on a profit-oriented basis. And this brings us to now, the most interesting part of this video. The reforms being implemented by the current head of the NNPC, Mr. Kyari, has been hailed as revolutionary. But what are some of the changes being witnessed under this new NNPC Limited and its leadership? Well, on August 26, 2021, President Muhammadu Buhari made a huge announcement that got Nigerians well-wishers excited for the future. According to the president, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation (NNPC) made a net profit in 2020 for the first time in its 44-year history. Yeah, I agree it took such a long time, but this is the great news. The NNPC was transformed into NNPC Limited in October 2021 following the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act, which aimed to make the national oil company more commercially viable and transparent. I'm sure you have heard of companies such as Saudi Aramco. It is a state-run oil company as well, but one of the most valuable companies in the world. So the PIA 2021 provides for the establishment of new institutions and agencies such as the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission (NURC), the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, which is the NNPCL, and the Host Communities Development Trust. The NNPC Limited is a wholly owned subsidiary of the NNPCL, which is a holding company that owns all the assets and liabilities of the NNPC. The NNPCL is owned by the government of the Federation of Nigeria through two ministries, that is the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Ministry of Petroleum Incorporated. The NNPC Limited is governed by a board of directors appointed by the president, subject to confirmation by the Senate. The board consists of a chairman, a chief executive officer, a chief financial officer, and 6 non-executive directors representing each geopolitical zone of Nigeria. The board is responsible for overseeing the affairs of the NNPC Limited and ensuring its compliance with the provisions of the PIA 2021 and other applicable laws. The board is also accountable to the shareholders, the National Assembly, and other stakeholders for the performance of the NNPC Limited. The NNPC Limited has embarked on several initiatives to improve its performance and efficiency. For example, in December 2021, the federal government of Nigeria and the NNPC Limited signed a 621 billion naira memorandum of understanding to finance the construction of critical road infrastructure in Nigeria. The NNPC Limited will fund the road projects through a tax credit scheme that allows it to deduct the cost of the projects from its future tax liabilities. And in October 2021, the NNPC Limited announced that it had acquired 380 retail stations from Owando PLC, a Nigerian energy company, for 63.5 billion naira. The NNPC Limited is also investing in renewable energy projects to diversify its energy mix and reduce its carbon footprint. One of them is the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project, which aims to deliver natural gas from Nigeria's southern region to its northern region for power generation and industrial use. The project is expected to cost $2.8 billion and create over 12,000 direct and indirect jobs. The project was launched in June 2020 by President Muhammadu Buhari and is expected to be completed by 2023. The Nigeria LNG Train 7 project, which involves the construction of a new liquefaction train at the NLNG plant in Bonny Island. The project will increase the plant's production capacity from 22 million tons per annum to 30 million tons per annum and generate over $20 billion of revenue for Nigeria over its lifespan. The Brass Fertilizer and Petrochemical Company project, which is a joint venture between the NNPC Limited and Dangote Industries Limited and other investors. The project will produce ammonia, urea, methanol, and other petrochemical products from natural gas. The project will cost about $3.6 billion and create over 15,000 direct and indirect jobs. It is expected to be completed by 2025. These projects are parts of the NNPC Limited's vision to become a global energy company of excellence that delivers value to its stakeholders and contributes to Nigeria's socio-economic development. The NNPC Limited is expected to become fully privatized by 2023, with its shares being traded on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. This is expected to reduce corruption and increase accountability in the oil and gas sector, something that has crippled Nigeria's economy for decades now. The GMD of the NNPC Limited, Bela, stated that the privatization of the NNPC will foster energy security in Nigeria. To this effect, the company has an expansion plan to grow its fuel retail presence from 547 to over 1,500 outlets. Now, this new private company, that is the NNPC Limited, faces many challenges as it transitions from a corporation to a limited liability company. It has to deal with low oil and gas revenue, which fell below projections in the first 4 months of 2022, as well as low oil output, which averaged 1.32 million barrels per day instead of 1.8 million as per OPEC quota. It also has to compete with other oil and gas companies in Africa and globally, as well as cope with the environmental and social impacts of its operation. The transformation of NNPC into NNPC Limited is a significant step towards the development of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. Under the new structure, NNPC Limited is structured into 6 business units and 17 service units. The business units cover different aspects of the oil and gas industry, such as exploration and production, refining and chemicals, gas and power, trading and marketing, shipping and logistics, and even new energy. The service units provide specific functions and services within each business unit. The gas and power unit is responsible for the development of Nigeria's natural gas resources, including gas processing, transportation, and marketing. It also oversees the country's power generation and distribution with a mandate to provide reliable and affordable electricity to Nigerians. The exploration and production unit is responsible for the exploration and production of crude oil and natural gas in Nigeria. It also oversees the development of oil and gas fields, drilling operations, and reservoir management. The refining unit is responsible for the operation and maintenance of Nigeria's refineries, which have a combined capacity of 445,000 barrels per day. The refineries are located in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna, and they produce various petroleum products, including gasoline, diesel, and kerosene. Ventures unit is responsible for the development of new business ventures and partnerships, including joint ventures with international oil companies. It is also responsible for managing the NNPC's non-core businesses such as real estate, insurance, and logistics. Yeah, I found one NNPC real estate in Abuja recently. Yeah, so it exists. The marketing unit is responsible for the marketing and distribution of petroleum products in Nigeria, including gasoline, diesel, kerosene, liquefied petroleum gas, compressed natural gas, lubricants, bitumen, and etc. It oversees the NNPC's retail outlets, depots, pipelines, tank farms, jetties, and it also manages the country's strategic petroleum reserves. And then we have the finance and accounts unit, which is responsible for the financial management of the NNPC Limited, including budgeting, accounting, financial reporting, auditing, taxation, treasury management. It also oversees the corporation's procurement processes and ensures compliance with financial regulations and standards. Each business unit of NNPC Limited is headed by a chief operating officer who reports to the group managing director of the NNPC Limited. The GMD is responsible for all the overall management and direction of the corporation, and he reports to the board of directors. So now there's a new transparency being introduced into the whole NNPC with this setup. The board of directors is the highest decision-making body of the NNPC Limited and is responsible for setting strategic direction, approving major investments, and overseeing the management of the corporation. The board comprises of representatives from the government, the private sector, and the NNPC management team. The current chairman of the board is Senator Margaret Chuba Okadigbo from Southeast. Now, while this transformation and new corporate structure has been applauded and in all honesty is a step in the right direction, the new company is still faced with some old demons. Nigeria has been grappling with the issues of crude oil theft for many years, with an estimated 400,000 barrels of crude oil stolen daily. This has resulted in significant losses of revenue for the Nigerian government and oil companies, in addition to environmental degradation and health hazards. Crude oil theft in Nigeria takes various forms, including pipeline vandalism, oil bunkering, and illegal oil refining. Oil bunkering, also known as illegal oil tapping, involves stealing crude oil directly from pipelines, while illegal oil refining involves refining the stolen crude oil in makeshift refineries to produce petroleum products for local consumption and export. Theft of crude oil from NNPC installation has been a long-standing issue in Nigeria, with the NNPC attributing the theft to a combination of sabotage, vandalism, and collusion with criminal gangs. The NNPC crude oil theft scandal, which involved the theft of crude oil from pipelines and oil installation by criminal syndicates, was alleged to have resulted in the loss of billions of dollars in revenue to the Nigerian government. In 2014, the Nigerian Senate launched an investigation into the NNPC's involvement in crude oil theft, following reports that the corporation had lost over 200,000 barrels of crude oil per day to theft and illegal bunkering. In that same year, the Nigerian Navy intercepted a ship carrying stolen crude oil worth $11 million, which was allegedly being transported by a company linked to the NNPC. The ship was intercepted off the coast of Akwa Ibom State, and the crew members were arrested and charged with illegal oil bunkering. In 2021, the NNPC announced that it had uncovered a syndicate of oil thieves who were operating a complex network of oil thefts and illegal oil bunkering activities across the country. The syndicate was said to be responsible for stealing over 50,000 barrels of crude oil per day, costing the Nigerian government over $1.5 billion in lost revenue annually. The Nigerian government has continued its efforts to combat crude oil theft with the recent arrest of 210 suspects in September 2022 and the detention of 27 foreigners who were charged with operating illegally on Nigerian waters and attempting to export crude oil without clearance. Individuals involved in crude oil theft and illegal bunkering have also been apprehended, such as the arrest of retired Navy Captain Philip Okoloago in 2017 and Alhaji Issa Bello in 2016 for their alleged involvement in crude oil theft. Another demon haunting the new NNPC Limited is pipeline vandalism. The Niger Delta region, where most of Nigeria's oil reserves are located, has experienced decades of environmental degradation, socio-economic inequality, and political unrest. One of the major challenges facing the region is pipeline vandalism, which has become a persistent problem in recent years. Pipeline vandalism is the deliberate damage or destruction of oil and gas pipelines, usually for the purpose of stealing crude oil or refined products. According to a report by the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASAN, pipeline vandalism started as a form of protest by some communities against the perceived neglect and marginalization by the government and these crude oil companies. However, over time, this vandalism became more sophisticated and organized, involving criminal syndicates, militant groups, politicians, security agents, and even some oil company staff. Pipeline vandals now use advanced equipment such as welding machines, drilling machines, valves, hoses, and pumps to tap into pipelines and divert oil into large tankers or barges. Some pipeline vandals also sabotage pipelines by blowing them up with explosive or setting them on fire to cover their tracks or create diversions. The impacts of pipeline vandalism are far-reaching and devastating, affecting the environment, the economy, and the security of Nigeria at large. Notable instances of pipeline vandalism in Nigeria include the Trans-Niger Pipeline, the Nembe Creek Trunk Line, the System 2B Pipeline, and the Kaduna Refinery Pipeline. These pipelines are crucial for the transportation of crude oil and refined petroleum products across the country, and their frequent vandalization has caused severe disruptions to the country's economy. So, what is the NNPC or the new organization doing to fight these demons? In 2020, the NNPC signed a memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian Navy to protect the country's territorial waters and prevent crude oil theft. The MOU is expected to enhance the NNPC's effort to secure Nigeria's oil and gas resources and also improve the country's revenue earnings from oil exports. To further enhance its capacity to combat pipeline fires, the NNPC donated 6 firefighting trucks to the Lagos State Fire Service in 2021. The donation was aimed at ensuring a quick response to any fire outbreak in the state and reducing the impact of such incidents on the environment and the people. In that same year, the NNPC and the Nigerian Army signed a partnership agreement to protect oil and gas infrastructure in the Niger Delta region. The agreement was a response to the increasing cases of pipeline vandalism and oil theft in the region, which have had a negative impact on oil production and the Nigerian economy. To detect and monitor any suspicious activities along these pipelines, the NNPC also installed surveillance cameras and other advanced monitoring systems. The corporation also established a central control room to monitor the activities of the surveillance systems and take necessary actions to prevent pipeline vandalism. In 2019, the NNPC said it installed an integrated security system to monitor its pipeline, network, and other crucial infrastructure. The system comprises surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and other advanced technologies. The NNPC has also been engaging with host communities and other stakeholders to address their grievances and expectations. The corporation said it has also implemented global memorandum of understanding and social investment programs to improve the socio-economic well-being of these communities. You see, throughout this thorough research work done by my team and I have come to see things that I didn't initially know about the NNPC. I used to think it's all evil and everything bad, but taking a second look, I found that the Nigerian government and the new NNPC Limited setup is actually making efforts to halt the rot and steer the ship in the right direction. A company valued at $60 billion in a country with a vast oil and natural gas deposit shouldn't be known for its corruption and scandals alone. And honestly, some of the positives I found while looking into the company have given me some sort of hope for the future, even though I am still careful with that optimism, because one thing I've learned about Nigeria is good people are always fighting to save the country and its resources from the hands of some highly corrupt fellows hell-bent on destroying it, all the while trying hard to stay alive. So, to every NNPC employee and public officers out there making sure things don't continue as usual, you are the real heroes of Nigeria, and I made this video because of you. If only Nigerian leaders can lower their greed and do right by the people, if only the management, which I believe are nice people, can remain patriotic to their country and do what is right instead of just following orders, some of which are contrary to their own values, then I believe we can have a national oil company that will not only bring development to Nigeria, but also bring pride to its people. So, will this restructuring of the NNPC bring significant positive changes that will see them fulfill their potential this time around? Or is this just some political points scored by the ruling party? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I want to take out this time to appreciate my team for this wonderful research work. Also to our patrons and our channel members who make monthly donations to support the work we're doing on this channel. You are amazing and history will be kind to you. There are a couple of other investigations we are carrying out at the moment, and the new format may be longer videos. I continue to solicit your support so my team and I can continue to bring these stories your way unfiltered. Now with that said, thanks for watching. Do check out this video showing up on your screen right now, and I'll see you inside.